So let's just take a minute and look at our agenda. First thing it says is welcome back in attendance. So while you're waiting for everybody to get on, go ahead and click that attendance link. You may have already done it. I promise you, I know a lot of you probably already clicked that link. Sign in. Even if you're watching on the recording because you couldn't be with us tonight, please be sure and click that link. There's a place to say, did you watch it live or asynchronous? So be sure and click it no matter when you're watching the video or you're here live with us. We've had a few people that couldn't be with us tonight, but I think we'll have more join still. We're just at 15 right now. Christy couldn't be with us tonight. She's at the hospital. She's had a new grandbaby, and her new grandbaby has had a little surgery. And today, this afternoon, they were training them about how to take care of things so the baby can go home. And so Christy had to be there for that. We think that's pretty important. We want her to be able to be at home with her daughter and the baby and enjoy all those things. So let's just catch up a minute. What else has been going on? We send you our love, Christy. Anybody willing to mic on and share about what's been going on?
Well, we had to do no mask Monday this week, so no face mask for us at our school district, only on the bus. So that's a positive for me anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
We also went mask free Monday. And we had the full moon last week.
Those might go together, mask free and full moon. It might be the new reality for all of us. Those are newsworthy items. What else?
Yeah. I might just add that a couple of our cohort members are having, one is just experiencing, Keith is experiencing a lot of health issues on his faculty. So maybe just ask everybody to be thinking about Keith and sending him positive energy. And then one of our members has COVID. And so just, again, just spread around all those positive feelings to everybody. If you've got something going on in your life and you need those, take advantage of them. That's one of the best parts about this cohort is the positive vibes that we feel, Jamie and I feel from you guys.
That's right. Absolutely. We're thinking of you, Keith and Rachel, for sure. And I think everybody else is planning on being here. We know sometimes some last minute things can come up. Oh, Lori can't get her Zoom to work.
Oh.
So I wonder if she tries to copy it and then paste it in her browser. Sometimes that works for me, and she may have already tried that. Do you mind to ask, Christy?
Hold on. I'm talking to her on the phone right now, and I've actually got it on speakerphone so she can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to resend it to her, so hopefully she can get logged on.
Okay. And that's something I can do too. I can resend. But if you resend, if it doesn't work, let me know. We'll do it again.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Those things can be tricky. Well, let's go ahead and let's look at our agenda. We talk about our community agreements, and we encourage you to have a nice snack, take care of yourself. If you need to get up and move for a minute, please do that. We are mindful that you have been in your buildings all day. And some of you are still in your buildings. We can see that. So we want you to take care of yourself. We want to talk just a little bit about that, talking about being a little tricky, is that we know we tripped you up a little bit when we ask you to send in your assignment again, send back your artifact and your evaluation form for your artifact again, because we've never done that before. You know, we've been doing this almost a year. So it really was a little bit of a tricky situation. So do we have any questions about that, or needed to have any discussion about that? The purpose was that you would have an opportunity after you met in small group to make changes, or maybe shore up something, or maybe add a piece of evidence that evidence-based research that someone, mentioned, and you could look that up, add that, or maybe add a next step that you might want to alter a little bit. And then another thing is, what we understand from our leadership at GRREC is that when we have you turn it into the Google Classroom, then we'll always have access to it. So when we had it in the other folders, we might not have always been able to access that because we didn't own the document. You own the document. So if we ever get asked by Standards Board or anybody else, about your work, we'll have all that together. That's kind of the purpose for that. It was twofold, but we understand that, and we know some of you just turned those in, and so Skip and I will go back now and we'll look at all those again to make sure we've given all the feedback we need to. But we will be asking that you, after tonight's discussion, that by Friday of this week, which would make that the 29th, that's why you see that day on your agenda, that you would resubmit that. So after tonight's meeting, we'll send out a Google Classroom assignment that reminds you of that and ask you to turn that back in. Any questions about that or conversation?
I have a quick question. When you want us to turn that in, do you want us just to, because I know on the Google Classroom spot, it's got the Excel sheet. And do you want us to attach our individual artifact and the evaluation form separately, or just hit turn in with that in that Excel sheet?
That's a great question. So if you just hit turn in, so what happens with that, if you attach it there and turn it in there, then it's really makes it easy for us to comment and send you back comments and things. That has been nice for us to make private comments. You can make private comments back to us. Oh, Lori's in. Wonderful. So good that Christy could send you your Zoom link. Perfect. But that is the reason, is we would have that in there. So we can always go back and pull those now. It's kind of a sticky situation. We wanted you to be the owner of your own work, but yet that way you're still the owner, but then we can access it should we ever need it for evidence or anything.
So we probably need to resubmit artifact 4 if we have it then.
Yes. Well, let's think about that.
Last month.
Yes, that was 4 was September's. Yes, it was due that Friday after.
Okay.
That's correct. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So from now on, anytime we have a classroom artifact, we'll have this kind of strange 3-day period. It's, when you sign a loan and they say, oh, well, you can, for 3 days, you can decide not to. It's kind of like that. So you've got 3 days then to make any kinds of, changes you want to make, and then send it back to us. Something else I think is nice about the spreadsheet when you put it on first is that, and I know you guys have figured this out, you can look at anybody's work then. You can look at each other's work. Now, one thing I think we figured out well is that when Skip and I first started doing this, we sometimes we'd get a message that we couldn't open it, like it was, if it was a link. But now we figured out if we can open that link in a new tab, it will let us see it. I don't know why it won't let us see it in the original tab, but we have to open, but we have found a way to do that. So it's okay to put links in there because we're able to see them now. I'm sorry. We were sending you guys a lot of messages probably to give us permissions. And it's really kind of odd because we'd seen some of those things already once, but the second time we couldn't see it because of where it was in Google Classroom. But now I think we figured that out. So again, thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a great question. Christy Campbell asked, is this when you complete the self-reflection or at the beginning? So when you complete the self-reflection, you're going to attach that to that Google sheet, just like you always did. And we'll send the Google sheet each month too. But then after we have our meeting, like after tonight, we'll send out an assignment and it will ask you to turn back in your assignment. And that's where you click in, turn in, and then attach those. So attach the artifact evaluation and either attach the artifact itself, or you can link the artifact to the artifact evaluation. Some of you did it that way, and either way is fine.
Yeah.
But we do need both of them for that record.
Yeah. And please rate yourself. I think most of the ones that I did, that I looked over, had not rated themselves. And I know it may seem sort of silly, but please do that. I think it's really good to, reflect back on your small group meeting and how you presented your information to your colleagues and your write-up, and just sort of reflect on those and give yourself a rating.
Yeah, and it just refamiliarizes ourselves with that rubric too.
Rubric.
I will tell you that we're working on the rubric and we're trying to make it better. And if you have some suggestions about how we could make that rubric better, we welcome those suggestions and welcome your thinking on that. One thing that we've thought about, because we put the problem of practice language in there, and so we probably need some data around, that connects the problem of practice and the rubric, because some of you are really doing a fine job with your problem of practice and helps, with your focus and things. And so we think that probably needs to be stronger in the rubric. And you know what? Anytime you revise a rubric, it just means we're all learning. So I think that's a great sign that we're almost a year in. We're about to have your year party. So it's time to kind of revise some of those things.
Do we still need to keep adding everything to our briefcase as well, now that we're in Google?
You know what? That's a really good question. And we're going to bring that up.
Question.
We're going to bring that up at the team meeting. I really don't think you'll need to do it unless you choose to. It's kind of like your briefcase is for you. And, but as far as we're concerned, it's a nice place to store things, but we also gave you a spot in the Google folder that you could store things. So, I know this, I would want to be sure I had a place where I kept everything. Because
Yeah, because on Google, I have a folder in Google.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's something we're talking about as a team. We don't want you to duplicate work. So I don't think you'll have to be doing that. But that's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
Any other questions? I think we're all on now. So when we look at the second section in our agenda, you'll notice that we said that we would take 70 minutes again. And so we're really going to take some time And Skip has been so clever in how he set up these Google Meets that
We'll see. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it works.
I have faith it's going to work. I'm probably just making all this not work by saying all that, you know?
I was going to
Karma.
drive off the road into a cornfield. But
Yeah. The technology karmas around us, it's probably going to not work. But anyway, we listened to your suggestions, and we also listened to one of our team members that said that she had figured this out. So we asked that, you might need to copy, cut, paste that Google Meet link and put it in a different tab. If you click on it, it doesn't work, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works beautifully. But if I found that sometimes I have to copy, cut, paste, and maybe it's just because I'm a slow clicker. I don't know. But anyway, if that might be something you try. And because we have our Zoom link on that's separate tonight, Skip and I are going to stay in Zoom for just a bit. So if you have any problems in your Google Meets, you can run back to Zoom and say, hey guys, this is not working, and then we'll problem solve. But that's not going to happen. We're going to be all good. So what Skip's done, as you know, is he set someone up in each of the groups that will be like a co-host or the facilitator. I forgot what they named it. What they call it?
An organizer. They're listed. And thanks to the 6 organizers. I looked this morning and you guys were all listed as organizer. And so I think you should be able to open the meeting and let people in, and we can certainly scramble. I'm still a little ways from home, but we can scramble and figure out something if you can open the meeting. But I think you're going to be able to.
Oh yeah. And we'll figure this out. But
Yeah.
We're going to sit in Zoom for a minute just in case. So when you look through it, we're using the same protocol we used last month. So it's going to give you each about 8 to 10 minutes to go through. And you're going to go through each piece. You're going to go through your problem of practice. You're going to talk about connections. One thing that really I would, it asks you to think about, what are the implications for next steps? And I'm wondering about how this connects to your other, because you're all working also on a content competency product now for this semester. I'm wondering if there are any connections, and if there are, you might want to share those. And then I know we're about to launch that capstone. We have 1 year now to work on the capstone. So, and you have a really clear idea about where you're going to go with the capstone now. So think about how this connects to that. Might be part of your conversation, and spend time asking each other clarifying questions. And just, by now, each other well enough, Skip and I, that we're just here to support. Use this time to kind of get everybody's brain going. So unless you have any questions, we'll just go ahead. You see your group numbers, and ask you to go ahead and click that and try to get in.
Okay. I will try to share the screen.
Thank you, Samantha.
You're welcome. Let me get out of my Google Meet because I keep hitting it instead of my Zoom. There we go. Okay. Top share. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
working well.
Okay. Okay, so my focus area was on instructional equity. So my problem of practice for this month, after collaborating with some of our special education teachers and general education teachers, I am a special education teacher, but I am in a special class setting. I teach just students with autism. So I am in a role where I help our co-teachers. So our problem of practice, based on our school data regarding reading proficiency in co-taught classrooms, grades 4 and 5, the majority of students are performing below grade level. Given the wide range of abilities in these co-taught classrooms, there is a need for differentiated literacy instruction, as well as for mathematics, but we're just going to take it one step at a time. So this month, I focused my research on deepening my understanding of differentiating literacy instruction. During this time, I have engaged in a collaborative efforts with general education teachers and our instructional coaches to create resources that allow co-teachers to target both fluency and comprehension within their core instruction time, utilizing those grade level texts. So I just took a little snapshot. This was our screener that we used at the beginning of the year. And this is 4th grade. So from that, you can tell that we have a lot of students that are below grade level, or about half of the class. And this is a co-taught setting. And then 5th grade looks very similar to that. And this is just focusing on reading comprehension and then language. So a lot of teachers had expressed that, in particular in 5th grade, that they were struggling with our students understanding, keeping up with the pace of their text that they were using. So that's what I focused on. So I'm doing a book study. And within that book study, it just focused on the Tier 1 fluency work. And it said that during that tier, most teachers work within all areas of reading. So, and then they go on to state that reading that facilitates comprehension should engage all components of fluency at the same time. So rate, accuracy, prosody, and endurance. And encourage to use the use of 2 different structures that can be utilized to coordinate instructional strategies for fluency within that Tier 1 instruction. Because we know in co-taught settings, a lot of those readers are not fluent readers, and we know that that negatively impacts comprehension. So these structures rely on explicit instruction rooted in consistent routines that have been modeled by co-teachers, just like everything else that we do. So some of the things that we have been doing. So the teachers already did a wonderful job of using buddy reading. So we just kind of modified that a little bit and put a fluent reader, or a more fluent reader, I should say, with a less fluent reader. And we just talked about chunking the text. So I just created cue cards for the kids to use at their desk. So one student, the more fluent reader, always reads first. They don't necessarily know who that is, but the teacher structures in a way, partner A, partner B, which they already have because of their Kagan cooperative learning groups anyways. Everybody's labeled an A and a B. So this is all about chunking the text into smaller parts, and then letting the fluent reader read first, and then the less fluent reader read second, and then they're coaching each other. And they're just doing that with the buddy reading the first time, just to read that text fluency. And then they're going to go back and they're going to retell. So these frames are also on their desk, and then they change based on whatever the teacher has specified that they need to be looking for. So this particular one was we're just focusing on the characters, the who, the what, the when, the where of the story. And then the last one is called paragraph shrinking. And then this is just a cue card that they put on their desk as well to guide them through that. Okay, let me go back to my, oh, where did it go? I can't get back to my slide because okay, that's okay. because of the time thing. Sorry. Just gonna pull it up again.
I have that happen, Samantha, when I'm on. So it's nice for me to see someone else go through that. I do think it's a lag somehow.
I don't know, and I can't move the time. I see where it's being recorded, and that's right over my tab, so it's okay. And then the second piece of research that I focused on, because I teach students with autism, I try to focus one of my research articles or studies at least geared towards students with autism, because my students do leave my classroom and participate in co-teaching. So the next part of research that I looked at just focused stating that strong reading comprehension skills are related to academic success, which we all know. And as text complexity increases, exceptional learners exhibit greater difficulties with deriving meaning from text they read so that they can acquire content knowledge. And all of these people state that the following attribute to improve reading improvement among individuals with autism. So explicit vocabulary instruction with visual representations of the word, repeated reading fluency. So that kind of supports what the first group of people were saying. Repeated fluency instruction associated with improved fluency, and explicit strategy instruction for identifying the who and what of the passage. So with that, I just took our grade level, and this time I picked a 3rd grade because I have 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I just put some examples on here of what we did. This was one of their vocabulary words, and we just added to that. The teacher was already using the visuals, so we just added to that. So the word is clash. They define it. Then they put on their related words or synonyms. And I use visuals for everything. And then it gave them an example sentence. And then it prompted them to use a discussion question. So what picture has patterns that clash? And then for my students, they rely heavily on those sentence frames. So right here, they just have picture blank. So they're going to pick A or B. So picture A has patterns that clash because they don't know, they can refer back up here to their examples. So that's happening in their vocabulary rotation with their co-teacher or their gen ed teacher. It just depends on the week or the day. And then explicit instruction for getting the gist. And this can be done on a sentence level or on a paragraph level. Sometimes with my 5th grader, we're breaking it down by the sentence because the level of the text complexity is very overwhelming with some of these stories. But this was a paragraph, so this was just chunked out of the text. And then after they read that, they're writing down all of the who's that they see. So from this particular paragraph, it would be Ollie, and then Marisol. And then what are they doing? Well, he's telling her that she doesn't match because she's eating a peanut butter and a jelly burrito. And then the gist, they combine their who and their what to come up with the main idea of the paragraph. And this happens with partners as well. Okay, so the implementation, I just utilize those structures to help the general education teachers implement these routines within their Tier 1 instruction that boost fluency through comprehension. I will say that I don't know that they are familiar with it enough yet. This is something that we just started. And we're also having a shift with some of our special education teachers. We have one leaving and a new hire coming. So as far as monitoring it, that's just something that I'm doing in my classroom right now for my students to monitor their grade level success, to see how they're experiencing that grade level success. There we go. So as a special education teacher, it is my duty by law to ensure that my students have access to the general education curriculum so they can go and they can sit in that classroom. But using these strategies, this explicit instruction, this is what allows my students, this is what gives them the ability to have access and to make progress within that general education curriculum. If they don't have these things, they are not going to participate. They are not going to be able to show their teacher what they know. All they're going to be able to do is sit there and listen, which is good to start, but I'm not okay with them just sitting and listening. I want them to be able to participate within that curriculum. And these are the things that I have to do on a consistent basis for them to do that. Okay, and so our next step, so collaboration needs to occur with both the general education and special education teacher to develop these routines. And so I have been assigned to mentor our new special education teacher, and I hope to facilitate this because I do believe that it's very important work and hope that it will happen consistently in those co-taught classrooms. Now I don't know how to stop sharing. Maybe start video.
At the top, it says stop share.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. You know, I have a question. I'm curious about how the students, you know, the routines they're getting into with the visual clues and cues, I guess, and all those. How are they? How do they feel? Can you tell that they're more willing to take risks now? And
Yes, my particular student that goes to 5th grade, she is much more comfortable and she loves to participate. So she loves, the 5th grade teacher that we have does a great job utilizing all those Kagan cooperative learning strategies. I mean, they hand up, stand up, pair up, or whatever it's called, more than any classroom I've ever been in. And they do it really well. And so the sentence frames make her able to do that, because without them, she's usually just standing there. Not that she doesn't know what the answer is to the teacher's question, but just because of her limited communication skills, it's hard for her to have that reciprocal conversation with her peer without that sentence frame. Because she can tell you the information, but without that, just that open-endedness, and without a routine, she cannot follow that. Most of my students can't, and a lot of special education students cannot either.
Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, I think it's helping.
I can go next if y'all are ready.
Well, thank you, Samantha.
Yes. That's a great job, Samantha. And I would love to say that my PowerPoint is going to be as impressive, but it shan't be, and that's okay.
You know, one thing, I want to go back to your data a second, Samantha. I'm really thinking about yours, if you don't care, just a second. And that is
Sure.
your data that it looked like that more kids were deficit in language than reading. Do you see that pattern often, or is that surprising to you?
I see that pattern very often. Because again, I think it goes back to, well, for my students, language is just a big issue. And so if you go back to the 3rd grade data, it's not that big of a difference.
Okay.
So I think it's as the text complexity increases, we see that.
So I was curious about that. So what constitutes when it says language? What what makes that up? I wondered how they assess it.
I think it's their it comes from vocabulary, just their language acquisition.
It's vocabulary. Okay.
Yeah, to utilize that within context.
Okay. Well, then I see that would be a real correlation then. Yeah, that's interesting. And if that's a leading indicator, if you see your vocabulary, if you see the language coming up, if that's going to change the reading or if it has a lot, that's very interesting to me. But thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
We
Courtney-
actually see that too in we just had a data day on Friday. And we were talking about ACT data in mathematics. And the first 30 questions kids are supposed to be able to do. Those are very, relatively simple. I mean, I'm a math teacher, so I get it. Relatively simple, doable middle school and early high school problems, but they're wrapped in words. And so we've had these ACT boot camps around, like, you really can do these 30. You really can, if you'll take the time to read it and read for understanding, read it twice, read it again, use context clues, things like that. But it's their vocabulary and use of vocabulary, within context that, I mean, it's detrimental in the math world, really.
Absolutely.
I'm in a meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can share. I don't want to share my screen. I want to share.
Well, I think you need to share the screen in Zoom. It's a little different than Google Meet in regard to you get all those different choices.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking there. It's different a little bit.
It is different.
Mhm.
Okay, and now let me see if I can move this guy and move down here for a little bit. I had all my stuff. Oh, here it is. Okay. You guys can probably see yourselves too, since
Yes, we can.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so my driving question for this month actually came out of what we are studying in my content cadre. And so basically what we are studying there is fluency and how we build procedural fluency with conceptual understanding. So that's one of the math practice standards for teachers. What am I doing as a teacher to build procedural fluency around conceptual understanding? And so basically what the research was talking about, it's very intriguing, and we see it a lot at the elementary school level. We see the idea, I think I have it here. I'm going to go out of order, but we see the concrete. So we see the build it, then we see the semi-concrete where we draw it. And then there's the abstract, which is being able to think about it in your head, or maybe have a word problem. And so you think about, I don't know, multiplication. So you have beans, 3 groups of 5. So you put, you have 3 groups with 5 beans in each of them. And so you have built the model. Then semi-concrete would be build an array, 3 rows with 5 dots in each row. Then little Johnny picks 5 apples from 3 trees. How many apples does he have is the abstract. And so in a elementary school setting, we see this, whether we know what it is or not, we see this concept of a concrete, then a semi-concrete, and then an abstract. So build it, draw it, write it. Or notice that the arrows go in both directions. Can you go from an abstract to a concrete? So if you give the word problem first, can you then go to drawing it out and figuring out what to do? But in the high school setting, we don't do this. And I was telling my cadre, and basically everyone in the cadre was kind of in the same boat. We weren't taught that way. We took notes, we did some practice problems, we did a test or whatever. And so it's trying to, my focus, my problem of practice is, what does it look like to have this concept of build it, draw it, then like build it, write it, do it kind of thing. What does that look like in the high school setting? So I had some manipulatives in my closet, and so I just drug them out, and we did this process that you're going to see here. So for the first 5 minutes, and these are some of my sweet little babies, they got to play with the sticks. So like any new toy that you get to have, you want a few minutes just to see what all it'll do. And so some of these people had, it was very interesting to see, like that one gentleman, he made a little walking stick man, and then some of them had moving parts they were able to create. So it was really neat to get to see what they were doing. And then we started to get into the meat and potatoes. And so lesson 1 was about triangles. Do all combinations of sticks make a triangle? And so their gut reaction is to say, well, absolutely, yes, they do. And so they start building all of these. And so then somebody says, well, she probably wouldn't ask that question if it wasn't needed. And so then eventually somebody finds, oh, yep, I found one that doesn't work. I found one that doesn't make a triangle. And so then we try to get every group. So these guys are in groups. We try to get every group to have at least 4 groupings of sticks that don't make a triangle. And then we ask the prompting question, why doesn't it work? And so that leads us to this. So in the top 2 examples, you see that our triangles come up short. And so you notice that on the top part of it, if you can see my mouse, on the top part of it, we have this little bit of space right here that does not complete the triangle. And so we laid them flat. And so I heard a whole lot throughout the day of, well, they're too short. And so we had to come up with, why are they too short? And so that wasn't on this slideshow, but we just kept learning. We just kept moving forward and trying to come up with new questions. Well, it didn't work. Why did it not work? Does it happen that way every time? And so then here's a counter example down here at the bottom where we did create a triangle. And why did it work? And so the students were able to come up with the triangle inequality theorem. And I think, okay, so it's not on there, or maybe it's out of order because I put it on there. But anyway, they come up with the triangle inequality theorem, and it's not that they know what to call it, but they say, well, those 2 shorter sides aren't long enough to go past that other side. So I don't know if you can see that or not. So the 2 smaller sides, so the yellow and the turquoise, were not longer than the blue. And so on the second one, the 2 shorter sides, the green and the pink, were not long enough for to go past the orange. So in the bottom one, you see that the yellow and the turquoise act longer than the third side, which is the triangle inequality theorem. So that was all lesson 1. What makes a triangle? And is there a rule for the 3 sides of a triangle? Then we have lesson 2, and it's about isosceles triangles. So they're learning how to classify these triangles. They're learning what their side measures make them, what their angle measures make them. And so we have all of these isosceles triangles, and there are 3 shown here. And then we begin to explore, what else do they have in common? So they each have 2 sides that are the same. What else do they have in common? And so somebody along the way gets the idea of, well, look at the angles. Let's measure those. And so we measure the angles, and then they notice that they end up with 2 angles that are the same. And so I had this one little girl, first period, she struggles, bless her heart. But she said to me, she said, doesn't it always have to be that way? Doesn't it always have to, them bottom angles right there, doesn't it always have to be that way? And the answer is actually yes. Why, yes, it does, ma'am. Always have to be that way. Great job. And so she was very excited that she could see that, because this is the concrete. And so the concrete is all about what I can hold in my hand. Can I make it? Can I hold it in my hand? And so this is what we came up with. If the sides are equal, then the angles are equal at the bottom. And so we then are able to go to semi-concrete. And so I'm going to skip over the one this is the one I've already showed you guys. And then we go to the semi-concrete. So I made this orange and green triangle at home, but this is actually a large Post-it that I used in my classroom as the kids were talking. So I had somebody shout out what colors you used. And so somebody said orange and green, 2 orange and a green. And so I made this triangle for them. And then we began to measure the angles and see that it worked every time. So, and you can see we did orange and purple and then yellow, 2 yellows and a red as we went down through there. But every time our bottom angles were the same. And then we could figure out the top angle, and I won't bore you with those details, but they already know how to do that. And so what they were able to see is the concrete right here, something that they have in their hand. So everybody made the 2 orange and green isosceles triangle. Then everybody got to write down a semi-concrete representation of what they did. And then we would eventually, not that day, but another day, we would eventually move that into abstract. So I might abstract sound something like this. Triangle ABC, A and B are congruent angles. And then it would have find the measure of whatever. And so they were able to go backwards and forwards between what they were able to build and what they were able to draw. And so I actually said to one of my students, I said, can you feel that triangle in your hand? Can you imagine what it would look like if we got the sticks out and we made it? And so those kinds of conversations were happening days after the stick activity. I need to come up with something better, but that's all I had for that day was the sticks. And so then here is another representation. There you go. Of the abstract. They are able to label all of these parts of the triangle. And so it looks like this. So I'm going to present and show you. So they start with an isosceles triangle. Then they are able to do this. Oh, those are the legs. Those are the ones that were the same color in my concrete. The other one is the base. And on the base lives the base angles. And then at the top is the vertex angle. Of course, we're going really quick through all of this, but we would take it very slow, one step at a time, and they would be able to draw out an isosceles triangle and label it with all of its words of vocabulary. There you go. So that they would know what's going on if they are given an abstract, which looks like this. And I don't know how to move you guys so you can see what's going on. So in triangle ABC, if the measure of angle B is 8x minus 5 and the measure of angle C is 3x plus 25, find the measure of angle A. And so my students would actually be able to think about what did the concrete do? What does it look like when you draw it out, which is what you see to the left? And then how do I make the abstract fit into this triangle here? And how do I know how to set this problem up? I will say to you, we had a quiz yesterday with a problem almost exactly like this in the quiz. And my students did not do very well, if I can just be super transparent. And so today we were talking about the quiz. We went over the quiz. We went over this question. And when we were talking through it, they were able to get all of the information in the abstract onto a triangle that they drew and marked appropriately. And so I'm not I'm not 100% sure yet where the disconnect is. But tomorrow I'm working towards how do I get my kids to feel confident in seeing a problem like the abstract and being able to draw it out themselves. We have lots of dialogue in my classroom. And so we're constantly having conversations. And so I told them, I said, it's okay to have that conversation in your head with yourself. What do I know about this triangle? Where are the legs of this triangle? Where are the equal angles? And so I have a lot of students in the regular and collab settings that are struggling to reacclimate to independent work and independent learning. They feel very unsure, I guess is the best thing to say. And so we are at the moment, again, if I can be completely transparent, we are very much struggling with how do we get our kids to feel confident in the math and be able to bring back what we know they know. I told my kids today, I said, I looked at the class average of that test and I was shocked. Well, it was a quiz, but I was shocked because I knew they could do it. I had seen them do it in class, but it's that producing it on an assessment and the anxiety, which is what I talked about in my problem of practice last month, was having so much anxiety around an assessment that they can't calm themselves enough to perform. And so moving forward, I'm intrigued to do this again. So like that's probably most likely going to be my next month artifact as well, is finding another topic and pushing forward in my research, because I think it's good. And I think that's what we're missing at the high school level, is letting them play and try it and come up with a concrete and then work our way towards an abstract. Any thoughts?
I really like how you make it hands-on, and I am a high school teacher as well. And I couldn't agree with you more that we just kind of put the whole, we just don't make it fun anymore. You know, it's like we're so caught up in meeting deadlines and meeting a standard, and we just need to go back to the basics sometimes. So I really like what you did with your lesson and letting them touch it. I'm an English teacher, so we don't really get to do as many hands-on projects. And so I admire when other teachers get to do that. I wish I could more often. I mean, there's ways that I can, but I think your kids would learn so much from this. Just continuing on with these hands-on projects, because some of them they learn that way, being able to touch it, feel it, and then, like you said, they can see it in their head then after handling it.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, this is like way out of my comfort zone. I love to take notes and I love to like outline them and do this is not, I am hardcore uncomfortable. Notice you didn't see any pictures of myself while doing this activity. I was in the corner going, you know, I'm kidding, but this is something that's really, it is way out of my comfort zone, and it's hard to do on the high school level, or at least it is for me. I mean, there's probably somebody out there that's knocking this kind of stuff out of the park, and this is what they do every day. That's not me. So I'm very, very new to this. So I'm hoping to find some more really good stuff.
So I agree. I want to compliment you, just like we did with Samantha, about really thinking about this and finding tools so kids can access, the learning you're, wanting to learn. I'm curious about something, because So we think about semi-concrete to abstract. I wonder, and I'm seriously wondering, sometimes we say I wonder just so we can have a slick word, but this is no slickness here. I wonder if there aren't degrees though of even abstract. So, because when I look over at your far right abstract, it's pretty abstract, I wonder if there's like some little bitty levels of it's in between there, and if that might be a connector for them. And because Courtney, I kind of connect to you when you say you love to take notes and you just love to know the answer because you're just a math person. And so your brain just thought that way. You know how we say, some kids think in pictures. Well, your brain thinks in math stuff, and so you're going to show us how to do that right now. So that's really cool. But I just say that to you is that I like the way that you said, okay, being transparent. I did all this and it still didn't work. So we go back and we kind of look at the task, do a task analysis and say, where did they start to stop being able to mimic me?
Right.
They were mimicking you on the manipulatives really well. And
yes. This was not the best one. This is something I use over the course of several days. This has a whole lot of algebra still in it. So number 4 on this one shows that B, so this vertex angle up here is 70. So that means that both of these angles here would be 55. And so that question, that abstract question that you see, it is like very end of lesson. Like,
okay, gotcha.
One of the last things we would do. So a question might look like, so another possible abstract for this, if C equals 40, find the measure of A. So the measure of angle C is 40. That means the measure of angle is B is also 40. And they would be able to step with just numbers. And so you're right. Yes, absolutely. This was a problem area. And so tomorrow we do the old football adage. We're going to back up and punt. And we're going to just have some mixed practice of things that I know they can do well. And then things that might be a stretch for them. And then we will reevaluate and reassess because I know it's there.
Well, I want to really just again compliment you on trying to do this because it is tough. It'd be much easier for you just to go in and lecture, have them write stuff down in a notebook, give them a grade, and say, "Oh well, I taught it." It's these kids. Right. It's these kids. And I want to say one more thing, and I noticed this, and this is not your fault at all. But when you look at, this is part of the challenge of teaching math, that the symbol that means like measurement for angle, it looks like less than.
Yes.
And you know what? For somebody that has any kind of visual processing or any kind of other, maybe language, that might trip you up. You may not be able to get past that. And I myself have tried to write math problems out on slides a lot myself, and it is so frustrating. So Courtney, I love that you're, working through this, but it is okay.
Well, and yes, I was trying to find, I always put, when I am writing in the measure of angle. Okay, so do you see how this angle here has a curve through it? So when I am handwriting these, I make the angle symbol with a curve through it. Because it does, and we have that exact discussion. So those are things that we are addressing, because I think notation is, we talked about vocabulary, but also notation is a huge thing. And so you're absolutely right. If they can't remember the notation of all of this, which is what chapter 1 and 2 are about, then we're here in chapter 3 and they're dead in the water. And so, I Geometry has a lot of, I love it. I love geometry. It does have a lot of really challenging things to overcome. Students are used to in math, they're used to like, oh, here's chapter 1 and we took a test and we're done with that. And so then they throw it away. And then, oh, here's chapter 2 and we're going to take a test and then we're done with that. And geometry is just not that way. Like, we learned all these symbols and things back in chapter 1 and 2, which I know is not really part of this, but I hear you, Miss Jamie. I hear you about all of it. It's crazy wild in my room for sure. But
I'm kind of wondering if you might have your next artifact or something, because a problem of practice that you've also identified just in the context of this is that transfer from, work in the classroom under your supervision to an assessment environment. And you're getting ready to go to, your football analogy. And, if you could maybe focus in on a task analysis, where did you guys go off the rails? And maybe work in some of those cooperative groups that you mentioned back in the summer and get kids to kind of work together. Where did you go off the rails? Where did you, and kind of figure that out. I'm kind of with Jamie. I think, you could, I'm just thinking about my stepsons too. I can see that, thinking back to their days in high school, they would get lost if the notation didn't quite match what they were thinking, and it would just totally throw them off. And then I also wonder, and then I know we got to get on to the next person, but about sort of a metacognitive artifact that you could develop. It would be kind of a creative, unique sort of thing, but it would be an assistance during an assessment event where you could come up with some cute acronym where you're like, double check the notations, or remember that it all adds up to 180, or, all those kinds of things that are sort of, they can kind of practice, and maybe it's an acronym that they learn so that when the assessment begins, just go through your acronym, think about, and that could be based on some of the things that they mention in your analysis. This is where I went wrong. Well, okay, then just remember this, and you shouldn't go wrong that way again. So anyway, my thoughts.
Yeah, I love it,
Great work.
Courtney. Thank you for letting us be on this journey with you both, Samantha and Courtney, because we've seen your work. It's really nice for us to kind of hear you talk about it. I've enjoyed staying in one meeting. I was just thinking to talk about Skip about that. We might from now on start staying in one meeting and then move to a different group in the next meeting or something. But it's really nice because we see your work but it's different when we can hear it and things. I too, I think back to how you started and you said those first 30 items, and they can do it, their confidence and things, and that the importance, but the wrap around with all the language and all the notation and, all that, how that changes it all. And I go back to this and I'll be quiet. When I first learned to knit, I was with a very good friend of mine, and, the knitting patterns, the notation, and, and I was like nearly 50 years old when I was learning to knit, but I had to read that out loud, and I had to even stop breathing at the commas to see my pattern. And think about how I knew how to process every one of those symbols. I mean, it wasn't saying anything complicated, but it was new for me. It was abstract for me. See,
it's so funny that you say that, because I tell my kids all the time, read to the comma and digest.
yes.
Then read to the comma and digest, and then read to the because they read the whole thing. More, that abstract that I was just showing you guys, it is a big question. That's huge.
Yeah. So it's like you get a visual
and then read to the comma and go to your picture.
That's right.
Go to your picture. Yeah.
But
okay. I'll be quiet. I can talk about that all day.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Okay, I can go next. First off, I want to say I'm sorry. I think I was supposed to have ship of group 2, and I did the Google Meet, but no one else showed up. So I don't know if I did something wrong. So I'm really sorry for those of you who were supposed to be in group 2 and it didn't work. So I don't know, but at least we're here, right? And so I'm in the right place.
You are. And
Okay,
Are
all
in the
right.
right place.
You're in the right place. And what I was thinking next time, what we'll do, guys, is I'll do a better job. We can maybe excuse the group leaders first and let them go open their meetings. I think it was just a timing issue. And I think you were probably not quite in there when Courtney and Sam and those guys and Holly were trying to get in. So
Okay.
you're in the right place though.
I'm sure it was my fault. So
It's all good. We get to hear you now too. It's awesome.
Okay, so I'm gonna hit share screen and
And while you're sharing that screen, I see Holly has a precious angel with her. Oh my goodness, look how he's grown.
Hi, sweet baby. I love you. Too.
okay, I don't know. I am trying to get it to work.
We got his cowboy hat today for his Halloween outfit. Look. How cute is that?
Precious. Oh my goodness, such a cowboy.
Oh, he's going to be a fine cowboy. He's going to be Woody, actually, from Toy Story.
He's adorable. We're going to have to introduce
The other
him to
day.
Ruby.
I told my mom the other day, I said, it's a good thing that we're adopting again. And so I said, it's a good thing we're adopting again because that baby Zion can have whatever he wants from me. Every time I see him, I'm like, what do you want? I'm going to have to get it together is what I'm going to have to do.
Okay, I'm trying to get this to work. I'm on my MacBook and sometimes I have trouble doing this on Zoom. Let's see. I'm sharing my screen and it's saying I have to open system preferences and security and privacy to grant access. If somebody else wants to go, they can. I'm trying to get this to work.
Okay.
Or I might have somebody open up my my stuff for me on that Excel sheet or Google sheet.
I can do it if you need me to.
Well, if you don't
Go
mind,
ahead.
no, if you don't mind, go. I don't know. It's not showing up for me, so maybe you can share it for me, and I can just let you know when to press it to move on.
All right.
If you could go to, let's see, let me find it. Where we submitted everything,
Mhm.
and you could go to it says peer review presentation. It's like the third thing over. I put it in a column all by itself.
I got you, girl.
See it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I get to remember how to do this.
Sure, I tell you what, there's nothing like teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes, yes. Okay. So I really appreciate you doing that for me. Let's
Absolutely.
see. Okay, so I am an English teacher and I teach at the high school. And so I have noticed that over the past few years, we assign an essay and the students write it, and that's just about it. So I wanted them to get a little bit more involved in the writing process and making them a little bit more accountable for it. And so I decided to do peer reviews. And it's something that we used to do, but I feel like we've just kind of put it off to the wayside because, like I said before, we're so worried about just meeting a deadline and checking this off and moving on to the next thing. And so I just wanted to spend more time with their writing. And so by having them do a peer review, students are getting a chance to look at their peers' essays, and it gives them a chance to think about their own essay as well. And so it just really gets them more engaged in writing. And, usually they think that the teacher is the only one who is going to read it. So now that they know their peer is going to read it, they might put in a little bit more effort. A lot of them are really competitive. So it just makes them have a little bit more drive into it. What I like about peer editing too and peer review is that they collaborate with each other. And so it's neat to see them to get together and talk about making corrections and how to improve, and then even how they are proud of each other for what they did do, what they did so well on their essays. I like to hear those conversations. So if you want, Courtney, you can click on the self-edit and peer review for Beowulf essay. Something else that I see with peer reviews is, they don't focus so much on grammar and mechanics. They're always worried about that. And that's what I'll do. That's what I will look at. Instead, they're just looking at the content. So this was a self-edit, and these were some things that we wanted them to, or that I wanted them to look at in their essay over Beowulf. And so we read Beowulf last month, and then they had an essay. And before they turned it in, they had this little self-edit checklist. And so you can see the first question is, does the introduction have a hook that catches the reader's attention? So I had a big lesson on how to do hooks. And then the second question is, does the introduction include the background information? And number 3 says, is there a thesis statement? So that's all in their introduction. And so, they're just self-checking themselves to make sure that they have included everything that I've required for this essay. And then as you can see in the do this column, they are supposed to circle, draw a box, underline, number things. So, they really are held accountable for these things. And then if you scroll down some more, Courtney, you'll just see all that is the self-edit. It's just a checklist, and I have them doing certain things in their essay to make sure that they are, doing all those requirements. And then Courtney, if you'll scroll down some more, you'll see the actual peer edit. So this is where they get with a partner, and all it is just a yes or no. And they check off if the student or whoever they are, whoever's paper they're reading, if they did it. And if you see through there, you'll see all these words that are bolded. So those are words that are really important to know reading an essay and even writing an essay. So we had a lesson over all of those things. And, to me, that's just the most important part of writing essays, is knowing those parts and be able then to do that in other contents, other classes where they have to write essays. So it's just a simple yes or no checklist. And you can say, it's nothing too heavy, but just, definitely they need to look at the essay and read it and write it or edit it. And then number 2 is correct punctuation, spelling, grammar, and other obvious errors. And then of course there's my rubric. So they get to see all of that. But the main point of this was just the peer edit, getting them with a partner and looking at the essay and seeing what their partner needs to do better on, or even just congratulate them on what they've done so well. So then, Courtney, if you'll do the peer review for research paper. Okay, so we did this just last week. And as you can see, again, it's just, here's the introduction and here's a few questions. Does the paper have a hook? Yes. If yes, what kind of hook does it have? So this time I took it a step further, and they actually have to write something besides just circling yes or no or checking yes or no. We talked about the 4 different types of hook for a research paper. Does the paper have background information? Circle yes or no. And then number 4, is there something, that they could have put more in about the background information? So I won't read every single one of those, but as you can see, it's just circling yes or no. Their peer is just checking their paper. And again, I feel like it's just a good way for them to get together and collaborate on this essay. Yeah, you can just scroll through there and y'all can just scan it. And then of course, with the research paper, we have, works cited page, in-text citation. Is it written in the MLA format? And they're just checking it. Yes or no. All right. So yeah, you can go back to the slide, the Google slide. And then if you want to go to the next slide. So I based my research and this artifact off standard 2, which was to access and use research to improve practice and student learning. And as I was saying older, I feel like this is something I did back in the 90s when I was in high school. But we just got out of the practice of doing peer edits, and I don't know why, but we did. And I think it's just so valuable because students collaborate, they work together, and then we give them another chance then to edit their paper and resubmit, kind of like what we're doing here, where we're all together. We talk about some improvements and praise each other for what we've done well. And then Friday is the deadline. So I think that's so valuable to talk to each other and let us know, what we can do to improve. And so that's what we do with these peer edits. And you can make your own peer edit sheet, or you can look them up. There's all kinds of templates out there based on, the content of the essay that you have assigned. All right, Courtney, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So here is the research. I found a couple of different sources. So if you ever want to go back to that and look there, you can. You can just click on the link, but you can go on to the next slide, Courtney. All right, thanks. So the impact on student learning through just observing my kids conferencing and partnering up and being together. And then when I talked to the kids, I saw that it really did help them on their own work. So after they got together with a partner and they were able to go back and edit their papers and improve on some things that they needed to. And then that, it really just brought about a bunch of, higher critical thinking skills, knowing that they were going to have to share their paper with their peer. And then the fact that they had to kind of grade their peer. So that was really neat to see them work in that way. And the research that I did, it says that studies have shown that even strong writers benefit from the process of peer review. So all of your strong writers, it's just so valuable to have someone else, a partner, look over your paper. It helps the person who is the peer reviewer, because then they're focusing on their paper too. They're wanting to improve their own work. Let's see. Oh, and it's neat to hear them discuss their ideas. Whenever somebody says, well, I don't really understand what this body paragraph is about. So it's really neat to hear them articulate their idea with their partner. And it also gives them like this professional experience by having their writing reviewed. Anybody who becomes a writer, I mean, that's in the job, right? They have to be critiqued. And so it's neat to see them work together and be kind of, business-like with each other. But most importantly, what I really liked is that with a peer review, it minimizes the last minute drafting. It cuts down on common errors that you see in writing. And so then by the time they were ready to turn it into me, even though it was still a rough draft, it was just neat to see how they didn't have to have as much to rework after they had turned it into me. Okay, Courtney, if you want to go to the next slide, you can. So my next steps in every artifact that I have turned in so far, I've noticed that I've really turned into this, not just a reading and writing teacher, but I'm wanting to focus on listening and speaking. And so I'm hoping then to turn all of this into getting them up and being able to present information in front of the classroom. So, to me as an English teacher, I've always focused on grammar, reading, writing, but I really need to focus more on speaking too. So incorporating this peer review activity is just one little stepping stone to get them to the big project. So being able to talk to each other, just to a partner, hopefully I'm going to build them up to being able to talk in front of the whole class. My next steps is that I have a unit where I'm doing careers, and they're going to do their own resume, and then I'm going to talk to them about job interviews. And so I've talked to the college and career counselor, and she's going to come in. She's helped me find a bunch of people from the community, and they're coming in to do mock job interviews. So, you know, I'm always trying to find ways to incorporate like what you're really going to do in the real world. And of course, a resume is something they're all going to have to fill out, unless they, you know, marry somebody really rich and then they don't have to get a job. But they are all going to have a job interview sometime in their life too. So I'm hoping that being able to get them to talk more in class will help them then when they get in front of an adult and do a job interview. And I think that might be my last slide. Yeah, I believe it is. Okay, yeah. So that's it. Thank you so much for doing that for me. Every time I try to present on a Zoom, it just won't work.
You're quite welcome. Listen, I love this. I love this. Well, because, okay, here's my brain. When I was typing up some of my stuff for tonight, I was going in and looking at the little, like everybody's chart and just like reading through some things just to know that I was on the right track.
Yeah.
Like I always tend to be, I don't know, like I always get antsy and I get nervous. Did I misunderstand? Should I be doing it this way?
Right.
And I, you know, I'm always afraid that I'm the only one out in left field having a picnic. You
Yeah.
know? And so I feel like for maybe your struggling writer or maybe your non-confident writer, they're going to be able to get those peer notes. They're going to have read somebody else's and they're going to be able to see that maybe, and some of them maybe not, but maybe they really are on the right track and it'll give them confidence to keep going. And then I think about like what you're doing when you're asking them to analyze somebody else's work. Don't we have to do that when we read an article, when we read the news, even when we hear the news? Like, are they hooking us in? Are they doing a hot button topic to make us have an emotional reaction, to feel that piece of news and, you know, to be able to separate yourself and to know fact from fiction, or at least from a half truth? And so to me, I think this is important. I think this is, and I know nothing about English, not nary a thing. In my mind, I understand that they're going to have to read some stuff and they're going to have to look for those things. Like, you know, is this person telling me the truth, or does this even make sense? Or, you know, so I don't know. Hats off to you, lady. Great job. And I like the whole job interview thing for next steps.
Yeah, I hope it'll go well. I know they're probably not going to look forward to it because they have to, you know, get in front of someone and actually get asked questions, and they're going to have to dress the part. But I mean, in the long run, hopefully they'll look back and be appreciative of the experience.
My very first job interview, the heel detached from my shoe and I had to walk in barefoot.
Oh my goodness.
Very first professional job interview. It's fine.
Yes, I'm sure you knocked them right off their seats. Yeah, I'm sure you did fine.
Well, you know, Robin, I just want to say you're right about it's an oldie but a goodie. I love that little phrase you use there. But so, and I guess I was struck by couple of things. One is all three of you had different tools that tried to scaffold the learning for the student. I mean, so that you were showing them almost the secrets, you know, like we used to think of, what is it that they really want me to do? And I don't really know. They're going to give me a grade. I don't know. All of you were unlocking that and giving the kids tools that, you know, Samantha was giving a tool, you know, a STEM, so someone could speak from that STEM. You know, you were giving that tool so they could have a conversation about the essay. And then you were giving them the tool, Courtney, about so that they could have conversation and really respond in a concrete and semi-concrete, you know. So all of you were making learning be demystified. And so aren't those students lucky to have you as their teachers that you're doing that?
Thank you.
But another thing I'll say this, learning is much more complicated than we give it credit for, isn't it? You know, all of you, either you're working with different, you were fifth grade and sixth, you know, fourth, fifth, sixth, and all the way through high school, but it's very complex.
Mhm.
It really is rocket science. Well, I think some of our friends have come back in now. And oh my goodness, I think we have another special friend with us, that Skip has a special friend with us too.
Yeah. She wanted to hear Holly's presentation too, so she came in. So
Let's see. So sweet.
here she is.
Oh my goodness.
Aw,
Look at all that hair.
yeah.
Oh my.
Mm.
Oh, listen to her.
I know.
I finally went to sleep. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint or anything like that. I do have some notes, but I don't have anything. I don't even know how to share the artifact thing. Do you know where, do you know?
Do you want me
hold
to
on.
do it, Holly?
Yeah, you can share it if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm doing the social emotional. I teach special ed as well, and a lot of my kids are really struggling. A lot of my kids struggle anyway, social emotionally, but since the pandemic, it's not just my children, but it seems like grade levels as a whole are struggling. But anyway, so what we are doing is we are working on every month, we're picking a theme for the month, and we are working on one area. Last month it was growth mindset. This month it is bullying. So we talked about what bullying was, and we talked about how serious that it was, because a lot of mine are second graders, and they tend to want to say, if little Johnny is not being his friend today or whatever, they want to say, oh, he's bullying me, he's bullying me. So we talked about the seriousness of it and how you kind of don't cry wolf, you know, so to speak. Some of the research I found said that the social and academic go hand in hand, that most likely that bullying victims are unlikely to have the cognitive and the emotional well-being to do well in school. Usually if a child is being bullied, that's what kind of consumes them, and they don't really have anything left to try to focus on school or anything like that. It did say that bullying has long-term effects, that that it's not just going to be for the, you know, the week or the 2 weeks or whatever that the child might have been being bullied or whatever. It will last, it will go on much longer. The effects of it will go on much longer than just a short time period. I did several different activities with them. We did a couple of read alouds. We read some books. I meet with them twice a week for social emotional. We did some read alouds. We did, this is one of the things we did, this journal thing we read. We just did this just this week. And we read the, go to the next page. It gave scenarios, and we talked through these scenarios, and we decided if it was bullying or if it wasn't. I did not give everybody their own copy, because sometimes they just get lost in trying to circle yes or no, and we just talked through it. I didn't give them their own or whatever. We did have one session where we talked about what they thought the signs of bullying looked like, because I wanted to see what they thought, because sometimes what we think as adults what bullying looks like is not what it looks like to a child, and they have very different views on stuff like that. Most of them said stuff like pushing or not being a friend, or just real simple. It wasn't anything complex or anything. Like, they're young, so that, factors in too. One of the other things we did said, one of the things we talked about was if you were bullied, what would you do? Who would you tell? What should you do? We had one lesson on that. And then we went over those scenarios and stuff. And when we went over the scenarios, not only did we talk about what was it that made it bullying, but we talked about who we would tell in that instance or wherever, whatever the scenario was or whatever. Of course, they all have a story to tell you. They all want to tell you 50 stories. And we talked about how we could change it so that like everybody could be friends, or like, for the first one where it said that you wanted to sit next to Jill at lunchtime and she says she doesn't want to, she calls you names and starts a rumor, tells everyone not to listen or sit, that's a big deal for little kids, is not to get to sit by, so we talked about how we could get Jill to feel like, not be the bully or not be the antagonist, to try to be a friend, and how you could, so I don't know. They still, after we talked about things like this, it seems like they want to throw that word out there a lot. So we did revisit that today, because I had one that just every little thing, he'd be like, he's bullying me. And I was like, now, wait a minute. It was down to like, I have all my pencils in a basket on the table. So when everybody gets a pencil, and somebody had gotten the pencil that he wanted, so they were bullying him. And I was like, no, this is not it. So anyway, that's next month. We have a different theme. I don't even know what it is for next month, but anyway, so this month it's been bullying. And for next steps, I would love to see mine, maybe act out some things. I don't know if they can handle it or not. I don't know if I can handle it or not, but we may try that. I don't know, maybe by the end of the week, but maybe kind of do role playing, and maybe let them actually let somebody be the teacher, and let somebody, and let them come up. I don't know if they can handle it or not. We'll see, but we may try one and see how that goes, and go from there. But that's really all I had.
Great. Any questions for Holly and comments? SEL is so big right now. Rightly so. It's always been big, but it
is. And it's not just like, I have special ed kids, and it's not just special ed kids that are struggling. It is across the board. And it's things that you just, we talked about this on Friday during our it's things that we just take for granted that these kids know. They don't know. And this is the group that missed half of their kindergarten year, half of their first grade year. And it really shows, it's mind blowing, just the stuff that they just don't, I don't know, things that you just take for granted. Well, they know that they've been in school for 3 years, well, no, not necessarily, so.
I think too, it's just really good to revisit a lot of this stuff, even at the high school level, Holly, because my kids, I can tell they've been out of school. Of course, obviously we're well into the second 9 weeks for my school. We started early August, but they're still struggling to reacclimate and still struggling to I had a girl with me this week. And I didn't even try to make her cry this time. So no, I'm kidding. But she just could not deal, and she was almost hyperventilating because of some of those social and particularly emotional things that they've not had to deal with for 1.5 years. And then we've come back to school and it's in their face, and it's every day, not every other day or whatever. So
I had one little boy that came, he had been on quarantine for what seemed to be weeks. I didn't think the kid was ever going to get to come back. And he went, the first day he came back, of course, I just made over him, and told him how glad I was to see him, and just went on and on and on and on. And he just burst out in tears. crying. And he said, everybody in my family had COVID.
Mm.
And he said, everybody but me. Like, and I was like, you don't realize this, the stress, I guess, that was on him about the whole thing, you know, and he just lost it when he got to me. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it was terrible. But, and he's such a sweet kid, but he just lost it. Like, he was just like, everybody's got COVID but me. He said, me and my dog. That's what he said. Me and my dog didn't get COVID. I said, well, that's good. And he's fine now. And he's usually so happy, and, you know, and he's never done that before, but he did. He just lost it. I said, I guess after being home for like, I forget what he was out, like 24 days or something. It was crazy. I was like, somebody kept getting it, and then somebody else would get it, and it would just keep extending his time that he had to be out. I didn't think he was ever coming back.
Well, Holly, you were that a trusted person in his life that he could tell that to. That was a pretty deep emotion. So, you know, I think about how all of your presentations connected to about the importance of listening and speaking and then interacting. And some of you had tools around the content, and you had social emotional, how those do connect. Well, we've had a great night. It's been a wonderful night of thinking about how our kids learn. So now it looks like we're getting, let's see, I think we need just a couple of more people back in. We're almost all back in. We could look at our agenda. And our next part, just ask us, sorry, I've got a really squeaky door. My husband just opened that door. It sounds like you're in a haunted house at our house when the back door opens. But so it just said, you know, what were some of the celebrations or questions, or what happened tonight when you were doing your presentation? So which groups would like to share?
Even if you can tell us that the Google Meets worked, that would be great. That'd be great feedback.
That could be a celebration.
It sure could.
The Google Meets worked great. I did get an email from Google stating that it was processing. I guess it's going to save, but it's going to be to my Google Drive, the video. So when I get that video, do you want me to share that with you, Skip, and just send it on over?
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, it's in there now. It's uploaded. So I will open it and share it with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think that ours went well, except for the fact that I didn't push record. I couldn't find it. Like, we started looking and we never found it. So I'm sorry, but it's not recorded. But our discussions were really well, and I think that we got a lot of information from each other. And like Kelsey was talking about recipe for reading, and so I wrote that down to take back to school. And I gotta find you on here. It was Lori, I think, and she was talking about a positive environment for the faculty and staff, and a lot of things with that. And so that's something else I'm going to want to take back with me. And then mine was more on actually room arrangement and Eckers. But we had some really great discussions about all of that.
I think there's a lot, Jamie can chime in on this too. I think the leadership at GRREC is examining a lot of things about GRREC Ed right now and seeing what works well, what doesn't work well. So, you know, this is 70 minutes that we're investing, you know, to go off, and it took longer tonight. But, you know, if you could just let us, you don't have to say right now, but maybe send us an email and say, this is what I like about it, this is what I don't like about it. It really will help us, because if I wouldn't say we're building the plane as we're flying it anymore, but we're still working on the wings. We're working on the landing apparatus and all that stuff.
I would like to get your feedback about something. Ask you if this might be helpful for next time, because you know, next time is closing out this semester. So we'll meet. It's that last Tuesday, and it'll be right after Thanksgiving. And so it'll be the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And then we won't meet in December. So it will be, I know that's really hard for everybody to imagine not meeting in December that last week. I know it's hard on us, but anyway, just teasing. But so I would like to ask you for our next meeting, would it be beneficial for you? And we appreciate how many of you really prepare your presentation so specifically. And you really put a lot of thought into that. And so would it be beneficial for us to, you're going to maybe compare your last artifact, which you will have an artifact, you'll still have a classroom artifact, with maybe choose an artifact that from last semester, and compare and we'll send you maybe a couple of questions that you can think about it. And how have you grown? Have you grown? Or is it just, is it just a bunch of processing? I almost said something worse than processing, but we are recording. So, I'm going to say the word processing. But I wonder about if you would think about that. Like on your artifact, if you would share just a little bit about the artifact, but then pull out an artifact from last semester and do a little comparison. We'll send you a couple of questions. React to that. Would that be helpful, or is that just not as helpful? And I'll tell you why I was thinking about that, because next semester, I wonder how much we'll grow then again. How did we grow, or did we grow? And if we did, how did we grow? And what do we think might happen for the next semester? Because we're going to continue these artifacts. It can get mundane if we don't look back and think about if we've made progress or not. But I'd like to get your thoughts about that. So please unmic and give us a few bits of information, and then we're going to go on and let you out early.
I think that could be helpful. An idea that I was thinking is it might be helpful for our capstones to go back and look at old artifacts and try to connect them to what we're hoping to do for our capstone. Because when we originally started, at least for me, I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted to do. So maybe that might be, I don't know. I would find that helpful. I don't know if other people would.
Abigail, that might be more helpful. And we're sincere when we say we really want this to be your cohort. Let's just talk about that. Would that be more helpful? And what would that look like? Let's try to talk about that a minute.
I was thinking about, the capstone, what was it like that was due in August or September? It was like the paper, and I was like, what is this? Where'd this come from? It came out of left field, and I didn't know what to do with it. So can anybody think of what that form was called and revisit that? But it was, it looked like it was a big write-up.
It was a template.
The capstone template, is that what it is?
Yes, and there are those choices, and they're in the.
Yes. That, I would love to revisit that, like work on that, tweak it, and then the artifact as well as our new artifact, but talk about that template and next steps for it, maybe in our groups.
I think that's a really good point. It's another document that we laid out there, and we set out a bunch of expectations, and then we haven't really come back around to it. So we definitely should address that at some point. So
what Kelly Price and I were talking about that tonight, about how do we get our artifacts from last semester and this semester onto that template. And so for me, I don't know that necessarily a comparison, like how, but like how do we get all of this, what we are learning and what we are doing, what we're putting into practice in our classrooms, how do we get that into a paper? Because it's so complex for me.
So you're thinking about how do you distill all that? Because, and not that you have to use every piece of it, you don't. I mean, in fact, you may have something new that's gonna, kind of move into it, but still it's that processing. So what if you did this? what if each of you come up with your own way? It could be a web, you could use a web, like a concept map web. And you could have your capstone focus area in the center of that. And then you could show how your artifacts had connect or not connect. Maybe they're over here on the different universe, they're not connecting. It's okay if they don't connect, because it was, we said that early on, not everything's going to need to connect exactly. But what if you did that through like a concept map or a webbing, and you could decide, it could be listing. Some of your styles might not be for webbing. It could be, you could draw it. If whatever your style is that makes sense to you, it's so that would connect your ideas of the capstone template ideas. And it doesn't have the template filled in yet, really, but just has maybe that body of research. Let's just go deep into that. The template has an area where you list in research. Maybe some of the research you've been doing in your artifacts would inform that. And you might have even deeper research in the capstone, but it's connected. Okay. Maybe that's a way in. I don't know. You decide your way in. So everybody's going to you're still going to post an artifact because, it's one of those rules. And we promised the standards board you would have these artifacts, and Skip and I would change it if we could, but we can. So you're still going to post that, and you're going to still post your evaluation. But what we're going to talk about that night is this web thing that you're going to do. Now, is that clear or is that shaky?
I kind of wonder if it would be helpful if Jamie and I, we'll pass it out to you guys for your comments and editing too, but just maybe some 3 or 4 questions that kind of guide your analysis.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Then you can do whatever you want. You can just answer them if that's your style. You could develop a web to kind of show your analysis. I wanted to thank just the people that I've been reviewing. I have noticed, and actually with a lot of you, I've noticed at the start it was sort of this kind of lots of different pieces and kind of disparate pieces, and then as we've come along, you're gradually spiraling into this very cohesive kind of direction, like SEL or the math stuff that Courtney's doing. And so even if you just kind of comment through those questions on how you've you're starting to pull all this together, and it's starting to go off in a certain direction for you. Because for us, it's exciting to watch. And I'm hoping that this self-reflection piece will kind of make it evident to you how things are coming together. It's really neat.
You've grown in spite of your cohort leaders. We love you. We're seeing a lot of change. So we do appreciate that. So we will send you some guiding questions. And like Skip said, you can just fill them in, or you can create your own way to do it. But let's see, let's go back to that agenda. Be sure you click on there and close out and do your reflection and feedback. And I think that's it. Can you think of anything else, Skip?
I can't. Maybe Ruby could say goodnight to everybody. I think she's awake now. So.
Oh, Ruby.
Hey.
We love you too, Ruby.
She's perfect, Skip. We love it.
Oh, she's a beauty.
Oh, Kelsey, just think next month, are you going to be able to hold up someone?
I don't know. I hope so. Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Better be.
Keep us in the loop, Kelsey. We hope everything goes well this week.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, please let us know. And we will be thinking of you. We know it's an exciting, but it's a scary time too. So we're thinking of you. And if you don't feel like coming on next month, it's okay too. You just let us know.
All right. Thanks so much.
Right. I think Holly had a sweet friend up there too for a second. We missed him.
He went to sleep on me. He's taking a little nap.
Yeah. He's gone to sleep. And the other Holly had a little bigger guy there just peeking in. Our kids know a lot about Zoom and Google Meets now, don't they?
My little one that was just in my lap, he's sat through master's classes and now this stuff. So he should be like an expert teacher by 6th grade.
He will be. He will be. How sweet. Well, everybody have a great evening and a good week and take care. You guys are the best.
Take care. See you later.